Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith and we are heading back into Darkest Dungeon with part number 2. The focus on this one is all about battles as we move into a layer based on the last video that we just went through, which was part 1, all about dungeon exploration, as well as the setup video even before that. So if you haven't checked out any of those prior videos, a link to the entire playlist will show up in the top right hand corner right now. You can click on that to get caught up to where we currently are. Without further ado, based on the last video, we were in the midst of setting up for a battle, so let's go through the steps in doing just that. So our party has found themselves inside the lair, and we are now going to go into a battle immediately by going ahead and flipping over one of these room cards to find out what type of room we landed in. So let's go ahead and flip this over and see what we have in store. We have the lockaway room. Now that we know what the tile looks like, we can search through the tiles that we have to find the appropriate room that matches. And just like that, the lockaway room has been set up, at least in terms of the tile. The next thing you want to do is read any special text that's mentioned on the card itself. Down here it states unholy aura. Heroes in this area can't heal or be healed. So why is that important? Well, because that icon on the card relates to this icon right here on the tile. And as you can see from the stance positions, it looks like based on this room we've walked ourselves into, all the heroes are going to be starting in the exact same space, and based on this special effect, which actually ends up being more so a negative effect for us, we can't heal or be healed. So we're going to have to get out of that particular area of the room in order to do any healing if we need to. Thank goodness we did everything we needed to be prepared prior to jumping into this. These room tiles are going to change every single time. Every time you take another card, you will resolve a different tile. The layouts of where you're going to put your miniatures for each of the different characters in your party is going to change. The last time that I played this off camera, I had individuals split amongst the group in sets of 2. This time, everybody's in the same room. And now our party enters the room. Now we're going to go ahead and determine which monsters are going to be inside this room by drawing from the monster deck and populating this stance track, which is specific to those monsters. And based on the keyword shown on the monster card, it will either say front or back. And of course, if it's front, it'll be in the aggressive stance. If it's back, it'll be heading towards the support stance. The Bone Soldier was the very first one drawn, and the keyword right underneath the title Bone Soldier says unholy, and right beside it front. So it's going to go right to the most aggressive stance on this stance track. Let's go ahead and draw the next one. The next monster out of the deck is the Cultist Brawler, and this also has the keyword front, so it will position itself right behind the Bone Soldier. The next one off the top of the deck is the Cultist Acolyte, and this one does have a keyword back. So as you can see, I've placed it in the support position at the back. The next one that comes out will be sitting in the range position. The final monster is the Bone Rabble, and it is a front keyword, but again, doesn't matter at this point as that was the only space it could occupy. Everybody is in their current stances, and now, based on those stances, we're going to take a look at the actual room we have, and that will depict where these monsters are going to show up. Now, the one thing I'm going to mention, but not explain during this, is about pulling monsters that actually take up 2 stances, being they're just that much bigger and that much scarier. If you happen to pull a monster card that tells you to grab a larger size monster tile out, you may have a monster that's big enough to cause some commotion on this board, and it will obviously be taking up 2 spaces, and that will throw a little bit of chaos into your plans, as these are just regular monsters per se, and the next ones up from that get quite a bit more intense. So heading back to the room, we can see that there are stance positions all over the map. I'm not going to place all those miniatures based on them. All the monsters are placed in the room, and now we need to place any treasure tokens where they're depicted with an exclamation mark next to the icon on the room board. And you do this with them face down, with no prior knowledge of what they are, randomly shuffle them together and place them out on the board. In this case, we only have 3, so I placed them in the rooms. None of them reside in the room we're currently in, unfortunately, but there might be situations where you start a room with one actually in your space. The other thing on the board to take note of is you'll see these pips in each of the room. That just lets you know the maximum limit of the amount of these miniatures or individuals that could be in the same room at the same time. Last thing you need to do to set up a battle is to set the round at round number 1. Simple as that. And from this point forward, we're going to now use the initiative deck to kick off the battle, determine who's going first. Is it going to be the heroes going or the party going, or is it going to be the monsters? And then again, we're going to activate based on stance order, starting with aggressive and running all the way through to support, no matter which one gets pulled. In the initiative deck, there are 4 monster-based cards and there are 4 hero ones. The first card off the top of the deck is the monsters. To keep track of which monsters or heroes have already gone, it's always best to just place that initiative card next to them or on them, just so you can easily at a glance reference what's coming next, right? That's going to help you in your strategy throughout the battle. So first off, the Bone Soldier is going to be activating in the aggressive stance. The Bone Soldier is literally just outside the door of where our party currently is. In order to determine what the AI is going to do with the Bone Soldier, we simply look at the bottom of the card and determine which stance it's in. And you can see right here we're in the aggressive stance, which sits right here with a 1 next to it, meaning it will go ahead and activate this AI trait number 1. Simple as that. The Bone Soldier is going to attempt to do what's called a graveyard slash. And as you can see in the top right hand corner here, it might be small, but it says most wounded. That's going to let us know which one it's focusing on. Well, currently we technically have 4 people in the room beside the Bone Soldier. So looking at this again, you'll notice that there's an arrow with a 1 beside it, meaning that this particular attack has a range of 1. So in other words, the Bone Soldier does not have to make any movement whatsoever to get into our space. If it had to get close enough to us to make this attack, or it needed to be in the same space, for instance, it would then just take advantage of its move icons that sit up here in the top right hand corner. In this case, the Bone Soldier at best can move 1 space, but it's not going to try to move into a room with 4 heroes if it can make a hit from distance. Again, you're always doing what is best interest for the monsters. So here in this case, it is going to target a single hero, as you can see from the red pip there. If there was multiple red pips or red circles, it could target multiple heroes. Now, again, I said that it's targeting 4 heroes and it's going after the most wounded. Well, technically none of my heroes are wounded. So then how do you break that tie? It just comes down to stance. Who is in the first most aggressive position? That's going to be the Grave Robber. So unfortunately, the soldier's coming for the Grave Robber. So the Bone Soldier makes a slash against the Grave Robber, and based on the actual slash itself, it says crit 1, 9 damage. If I roll a 1 on a d10, I'm taking 9 damage. The Grave Robber has 11 health. That is a substantial hit. The other thing here is accuracy's up to 9. So basically anything from 2 all the way up to 9 is going to hit for 5. That's also really rough. In terms of the Grave Robber, do I have anything that can help defensively? No, I have no dodge currently on the character by default, and the only thing I have can help me with crits when I roll. So that's no good. And the downside is I have a negative quirk for this Grave Robber that if I take any amount of wounds, I take an additional 1. So if I get hit with the crit, I'm actually not going to take 9, I'll take 10, which is literally 1 away from dying. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Here we go. All right, and those are the heart-pounding types of rolls you're going to be making in Darkest Dungeon, as at any second things can go sideways. Thank goodness in this case it's just going to be 5 damage, so it's not as bad as I originally thought. But remember, because I got the 2 and it's within the accuracy, it's 5 damage, but because of the fragile negative quirk, it's going to be an additional 1 on top of that, so 6 total damage coming to the Grave Robber. All right, I gotta say, it's a pretty substantial hit to start us off. Let's go back to the initiative deck, draw our next card. The next initiative card coming off the top of the deck, I'm hoping for heroes. No, monsters. The Cultist Brawler is the one triggering this time around, and again, in defensive stance, it will be doing number 1, which is Rend for the Old Gods. It'll be going after the closest one. It can shoot this or actually deal this damage from range of 1. It'll hit 1 target. Unfortunately, with all 4 heroes in the same room, it is going to target the Grave Robber again. So this attack has a crit 0 for 5 damage, and thankfully, I guess if you roll a 0 on a 10-sided die, that's going to result in nothing. So really the only way that that crit could actually hurt me is if there was something going on in the dungeon. For instance, the actual light level happened to be at 4 or 3, so that would be a +1 crit. That would turn that 0 into a 1 and make the possibility for it to hit me even worse. But at this point, it's just going to go up to 8 for its accuracy based on what's going on. It's going to do 3 damage if I can land it. Hopefully hopefully it'll roll a 9 or a 10 and I'll be safe. The grave robber has nothing in terms of stopping this thing from hurting me. Plus, I'm fragile. I don't like that. All right, we got a 5, so that is going to be 3 damage plus an additional 1. That's going to bring me up to a total of 10. It's not enough to kill the grave robber, but it's certainly close to death. Grave robber now has 10 total wounds, 1 away. We're really going to need to think about something we can do to get the grave robber out of harm's way. Maybe not having the grave robber at the front of the line anymore. Next initiative card off the top of the deck. Come on, heroes. There we go, we finally got one, and the first hero is going to be the grave robber, so he is going to get the chance to do something here. This is the first hero turn, so because of that, we should probably talk about the different actions I can do. Every time a hero activates, like the grave robber here, I'm going to get 2 actions. I can choose to use them to move, interact, change stance positions, or use a skill, and my skills are right on my player board for the grave robber. I've got 3 of them. On a hero's turn, the hero can also consume any amount of provisions they want as a free action. So I really wish at this point in time I had something that could heal me. For clarity's sake, if I chose to move as one of my actions, I'd simply reference the icons listed here to know how much movement I actually have when I take a move action. So I can move up to 3 spaces with the grave robber. I can also interact with a chest if I could actually get to one. Maybe that's my way to be able to hopefully heal. Now, one thing I'm noticing on the monsters that are still left to initiate further on in the round is the Bone Rabble here has the keyword closest for both of his. So if he actually activates, he'll be going after the closest individual. So in other words, moving further away could actually be a way to try to keep the grave robber alive. But the cultist acolyte later on goes after, depending on which of the 3, based on his current spot, he would be rolling a die. So we actually wouldn't even know exactly which of these he'll do. So some of them will have that where if they're in the support position like this shows right here, then he's going to roll a die and based on the result it's going to be either 1, 2, or 3, but the keywords state most stress, furthest, and closest. So that's kind of sketchy. I could go as far away as possible, but there's a risk the cultist could come right after me. So taking a look at the game board, the scariest individual that is going to pose a threat for the grave robber currently is definitely the cultist acolyte. So I'm going to put my attention on trying to take this thing out, and we'll see how it pans out. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do some movement right now. I have a movement of 3 with the grave robber. We're going to head right into the space with that acolyte. Now I'm going to use the skill Pick to the Face. This is a crit 0 and 7 damage, so obviously that's going to get me nothing unless I can increase the crit level. That could have happened if, for instance, it had been a little bit darker based on the light tracker just off screen here, or some other skill. I could even technically go ahead and burn my critical stoner trinket to get a +2 crit, but I just don't know if this is the right time. My thought process is, based on the fact 2 monsters have already gone, the odds are in my favor that a hero card will come up next, at least I'm hoping it does, and I should be able, in my mind, to get a 4 damage on this acolyte, and then hopefully, if things work out, the jester should be able to come in and clean it out before it activates. And this is the acolyte is the scariest one to take down the grave robber currently, so let's go with that plan. So we're going to go ahead and roll the die. So I have up into a 9 roll, so basically from 1 all the way up to 9 is going to do 4 damage. I have to be in the same spot and I'm in the correct stance. Here we go. Oh yeah, just got it at the very, very edge. So the acolyte now has 4 damage and has 9 total to take it out, so I just need 5 more. Here we go with the next initiative card. Come on, hero. Yes! Just before we go ahead with my hero turn, I need to finish off the cultist brawler. I had missed these 2 instructions just below here. One is for self, which means for the cultist brawler. It says pull 1, and whenever you're pulling yourself towards the aggressive stance of the stance track, which would be right here. So the cultist brawler is going to pull 1, moving its card from here to here, which will force the bone soldier to be pushed 1 back to its position. And the grave robber is going to get even more beat up. As you can see, the Ren for the Old Gods not only does hits for damage, but also is going to put bleed on the grave robber. 1 bleed, but for 3 turns. So I'll be making a stack and placing it here, as well as a debuff for 2 turns and an increase to stress as well. It's been an all-around tough day for the grave robber. You can see here now that the initiation of the grave robber's next turn will actually put the grave robber at 11 damage. Next up in stance order is the highwayman. I'm going to have the highwayman try and do a pistol shot on the remaining health left on the acolyte. So I'm going to move this highwayman all the way to the far right hand side where the treasure box is. Based on the pistol shot skill, I can shoot from a range of 1 to 2 away, so I'm in a good spot to be able to pull that off. Plus I've got a treasure box nearby for later on. So what I'm going to do is roll this. Crit 1 will give me 9 damage if I roll a 1. That's pretty impressive. And the accuracy is 9, and that will give 5 damage. And 5 damage is exactly what we need in order to take out the acolyte. So I'm looking pretty good so long as I don't roll a 10. Here we go. Oh, just barely. The highwayman did his job correctly. We took that individual out. Now we're going to go to the initiative cards, see what is coming next. Another hero activation. That's pretty awesome. So it looks like at the beginning of this whole fight, we had 2 monster activations back to back, which was a pretty vicious way to start. Hence the reason why the grave robber is doing not so hot. But now we have 3 activations in a row for the hero. So we're kind of getting things back in our favor here. The jester has 2 options, being in the range stance, harvest 1 or Dark Stab 1. I believe that's supposed to be Dark Stab 1. I'm going to go with that. So I think this is the one I'm going to probably want to use. And the reason, well, this is the debate. The reason why this is good is because, first off, my accuracy on it's very high. The damage is quite high, even for just a regular hit. It's up to 5. Crit-wise, I could hit a 7, which would be awesome. And the actual bone ramble is a 6. So that's not bad. Whereas if I go with the harvest, I'm not going to get as much damage. It's more about hitting multiple targets. As you can see, there's 2 red circles. So I think I'll probably go for the Dark Stab or the Dark Stab. I need to be within range 1 to be able to pull this off. So I'll probably just put myself right in the same room. So as planned, Jester is going to move 3 spaces and end up right in here with the bone rabble. And we're going to go ahead with the Dark Stab or Dark Stab. Here we go. Oh, we got ourselves a crit. That is going to be 7 damage. Now, what's also about landing a crit is that when you land a crit, you get to reduce your stress by 1, and every other hero that's in that same space also gets to do this. So unfortunately, no one else was in there with me, but the Jester is going to be able to reduce stress levels at 2 down to 1. And this is why going after the next monster to initiate was a good strategic decision, because now no matter what cards come off the top of that, no more monsters can activate, as the 2 that are still alive have already activated. So we'll go ahead and pull the top card. It is a monster, so nothing will happen there. We'll just continue on. And actually, at this point, when you reveal 1 and you've already got 2 there, you can just go ahead and remove the card, because when we actually reshuffle the deck, we're going to be losing 2 of those monster cards anyway. Flipping the next one over is Hero, so Hero will be going next. So the Arbalist is starting their activation right now. 2 actions to spend. One thing to talk about in regards to skills, if you want to use your skills for all your actions, is the first time you use a skill, if you actually land the hit, you can no longer use that exact same skill for your second action. However, if you miss, you are still allowed to reuse it again. So you can go at somebody twice if you don't do so hot the first time. Now, what I'm going to try to pull off is doing the sniper shot as well as blind fire. If I can pull off both of these, I will get a total of 11 damage at the worst in terms of the accuracy of just trying to nail those. They're pretty high. A 5 damage and a 6 damage is the 11 I need to kill off the cultist brawler. If I get a crit, even better. A crit here would give me 9 damage. So I'm going to go ahead with the sniper shot first because I'm excited. I could potentially get a crit. If I do, that's a crazy amount of damage. But even if I don't, I have an accuracy rating all the way up to 9 for 6 damage. So that's pretty good odds. I just don't want to see a 10 in this roll. All right, we got ourselves a 3. So that is going to be 6 damage placed on the cultist brawler. And just taking a look at its armor, it has none, so this goes straight through. And now for the big question of the day: can the Arbalist take this thing out with a blind fire attack? This time around, I don't have the ability to pull off a crit whatsoever. It's at 0, but the accuracy level is up to 8. And as long as I get 1 through 8, then I do 5 damage, and that's enough to take that brawler out. Wish me luck. Oh, we got a 3. We are good to go. Now that is how you pull off a round. That was pretty awesome. Now the grave robber is definitely gonna die. There's nothing I can do to stop that at this point. When we reshuffle and we activate, the grave robber's at the very front. The bleed will trigger immediately, killing the grave robber. But we did so much in terms of killing off the enemies in one full round. We did pretty good overall. So at this point in time, we're going to take a look at the next initiative card. We know it's a monster. So at this point, being that we already have the other initiative cards above the monsters that have activated, this one can be discarded for now. And we'll also take a look at the initiative cards above the 2 that went because we killed one of them off. So as you can see over there, things got pretty interesting. So what just happened was I went ahead and killed this cultist brawler. So not only is this card not coming back into the initiative deck, but also we're going to go ahead and just move this out of the way. The bone soldier now is going to shuffle down to this position, and this monster card will be the only one going into the initiative deck when it's recreated. And we now have 3 dead monsters from this particular room. The initiative deck down below has been shuffled up, 4 hero initiative cards in there and 1 monster initiative card. You'll also notice that the round tracker for combat has moved from 1 to 2, denoted by that white tracker. If it happens to get all the way to the very end, basically all the heroes have run out of time to clear the room and are pushed out of the room, and will have to revisit the room in order to try clear it in the future. The interesting thing to note though is you cannot re-enter the room immediately after being pushed out of it though. You have to proceed with an exploration. So it's going to cause you a little bit of pain. So first card off the top for this new round is Hero. That is going to be the grave robber. So now you're going to see how this works, and it's pretty simple. You're going to go ahead and remove from each of the stacks one of these, and as you can see, when a wound goes through, that will be 1 damage to the grave robber, on top of the fact he has a negative trait that if he takes any damage, he takes an additional 1, so he's really taking 2. This grave robber was on the downward trend for quite some time, so at this point in time, we have lost our friend. The only thing that isn't removed when a character dies is the trinkets, so the trinkets can be dispersed amongst the party. Again, you have to respect the limits for holding trinkets on a particular character. Being that the Highwayman has the highest crit damage type of skills, I think this critical stoner is going to be a huge advantage for the Highwayman down the line, so I'm going to place that trinket on him. So with the grave robber now gone, we have to choose an available individual waiting at the stagecoach. You'll remember from the setup video, I placed 2 individuals at the stagecoach. The new hero that we choose gains XP equal to those the party has accumulated during the campaign up to this point. Currently, we don't have anything. We have to ensure we don't spend any XP from the stagecoach at this point in time, but this particular death is different because it occurred inside of a combat. And so when a hero dies during combat, they have to wait until after the combat is finished in order to join the party, and then after that, players can continue exploring the dungeon as usual. So at this point, we continue by revealing the next initiative card, and we have another hero. Now, as a result of the grave robber being taken out, the grave robber is going to be removed from the stance track. The Highwayman is going to move forward, and the jester will move forward, and the arbalist will move forward in position. Just like that, we're all squared away, and we can start with the very first hero activation, Highwayman. Now the Highwayman is going to interact with the chest in his area. Definitely want to try and gobble up a few of these before we remove the final bone soldier in here, because once we remove the bone soldier, all the treasure is going to disappear that we don't collect. So I definitely want to grab as many of them as I possibly can. So the Highwayman will interact with that chest right in his space. The Highwayman has uncovered a treasure called Roll for either gold or provision. We get a choice here. We can either go and roll a d10 to get as much gold as we can equal to the result, or we can roll a white provision die and add it to our common pool. Now, the provision die would have been really helpful for the grave robber earlier on, but based on that bleed condition being on there and no ability to get that off of there, it eventually was coming around to get him no matter what. So in this particular case, I think I'm actually leaning more towards the gold. So let's go ahead and roll a d10 right now and see how it pans out. I'm hoping for a nice high number here. Hey, 7's pretty good, I'll take it. The party now has a total of 12 gold, as shown in the bottom right hand corner there on those tokens. This is great because during the Hamlet phase, we're going to have more options. We're going to be able to spend that gold during that phase, which you'll see in a future video. So we'll go ahead with the second action for the Highwayman. I'm going to choose to change my stance rather than going after the Bone Soldier. Just like that, we've switched positions, the Highwayman and the Jester. I've also placed the Hero Initiative card on top of the Highwayman to remind us that we're going to be activating the Jester first next time the heroes get an activation card. All right, next initiative card off the top is going to be another hero. This is going to work out quite nicely because you can see there's another treasure inside the space with the Jester right now, so I'm definitely going to interact with that first, and then we will do an attack against the Bone Soldier. Now this is a fantastic one to get. It is a roll for double gold or choose a provision. I'm definitely going for the double gold. All right, let's see how this die roll pans out for us. A 4, so we get an 8 in total. Here's the current state. We now have 20 party gold here, which is great. That again is going to help us out big time in the Hamlet phase. This has been a really successful battle so far. The one thing I want to mention is the fact that right now I do really want to get that other chest. However, I have to think about how much damage I'm going to take by potentially pushing this into round number 3. As of right now, the Jester is in a spot just 1 away from the enemy, and based on the Jester's current position as being an aggressive stance, I have 2 attacks that I can make, and one of them I could do from range, but only if I get a crit and I roll a 1 do I actually kill the thing. Otherwise I just put 5 damage on it. So I'm thinking I'll go ahead and try that to see if it pulls out and works, but best case scenario I'll probably get just 5 damage on the Bone Soldier, which is a total of 7. The only other thing to keep in mind is the Bone Soldier has armor, so whatever value of damage I get is going to be halved and then rounded up. So really, if I get 5 on there, it's going to be 2.5, so it'll be rounded up to a 3. So I'm going to have to slowly chip away at this thing between maybe the Jester's turn and then the Arbalest last. So the Jester is going to go ahead and do the Dirk Stab 1, so crit 1 for 7 damage and accuracy 9 for 5 damage. Just before I go ahead and make this roll, I want to make mention of the fact I could use the Archer's Ring, which I have on the Jester as a trinket. It would give +2 accuracy, but honestly, when it's at a 9, a +2 to 11, well, that's going to do nothing for a D10 beyond just 1 extra chance to hit. I'm going to risk just not using it right now and use it some other time for a better situation. So we're going to go ahead and roll right now, remembering that we have an armor here. So once again, whenever I roll and get damage, it'll be halved and then rounded up. Here we go. A 2, okay, wow. So a 2 is going to be a regular hit of 5. That's going to be halved to 2.5 and then rounded up 3. So 3 damage on the Bone Soldier, 7 to take it out. Now this is where things get interesting with the initiative track, because if I pull right now another hero, we've got this in the bag. We should be able to take this Bone Soldier down. However, the Bone Soldier might get a chance to activate and do some harm to us because we love just going around looting all those chests. So let's go ahead and see what happens. Nope, we got a hero card. All right, it's all left up to the Arbalest. Let's see if we can do this in 2 attacks here. So each action I'll use a skill and attempt to take this thing down, because remember we got that wonderful, wonderful armor. So Blind Fire will be the first one. It's a crit 0, which means we can't get it on the die right now unless we use a game effect to bump that up. But accuracy is all the way up to 8, and as long as we get a roll between a 1 and 8, we get 5 damage. And if we have that all the way down and round up, that'll be 3 damage, which is 6, which is not enough to kill it because we need 7, so we'll have to go for that second attack. So let's see how the Blind Fire one goes right now. Rolling away, we got ourselves hidden behind a 6, so we're good there. We are going to end up doing 3 damage. Just so you're aware, the Blind Fire can be shot in the same space and up to 2 away. And the Sniper Shot I'm going to use next can also be shot from range 2, so that's pretty nice. So I'm going to go ahead and roll this as a crit 1 for 9 damage. That would be an insane hit if I was able to pull that off. I don't even need that much, but it'd be great just to end off the battle. Worst case, accuracy all the way up to 9 for 6 damage, which is halved is 3, and that's more than enough. That'll be 9 total damage on the Bone Soldier, and that thing will be out of here with a health of 7. So here we go. Rolling away. Let's see how it goes. We got a 7. That will give us the 3 damage we need. The Bone Soldier is done and out, and we have finished our battle successfully, except for the fact the Grave Robber, well, is in the dirt. At the end of a battle, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to take the room tile and where your heroes are standing, bring your hero miniatures back to their boards, take the room tile and remove it from play. Also take any treasure that you didn't happen to interact with, also remove that from play. You don't get to interact with that or get to keep it. The monsters that you use miniature-wise can go back to the miniature pool. The actual cards for the monsters can be shuffled back into the monster deck. Just like that, we're all reset, and we'll go ahead and just take this tracker off the round tracker. We also successfully defeated the lair that the party is currently in, so we're going to go ahead and clear that token. We'll place it on the Scout Ahead quest to remind us that right now, because we've cleared 2 rooms, we're going to gain an additional XP. We'll be placing that with the gold that we've collected. At this point, we're all squared away, except for the fact we are missing a party member, and we need at this point to bring a new one into play. So out of the 2 that I had at the stagecoach from the setup video, I'm choosing to bring the Vestal in here, and you can see why. The skills for the Vestal are all about healing. This is something that I didn't have as part of the original party. Certainly would have helped the Grave Robber if I had had this character there with us. So at this point in time, you set them up similar to what you've done in the setup video, going ahead and grabbing their skills. But just before you go ahead and do that, the new hero is going to gain XP equal to what the party has accumulated during the campaign up to this point. All that will be recorded at the stagecoach on that piece of paper for your campaign. So basically, as your individuals progress and you're further on your adventure, if you happen to lose somebody and they come in at a later time, they're going to be boosted up to current day with the rest of the party. So if there's XP available, spend it to level up to the current campaign level, then choose and equip the hero with level 1 skills and all that good stuff. So in this case, being that I am very much starting right away at the very beginning here, and I don't have any XP bundled up and recorded at the stagecoach to this point, then this is just going to be a new character coming in at level 1. That's all there is to it. Quite easy. You're going to also want to ensure that you don't forget about any special rules that happen to relate to the first imminent threat that you chose. So you can see here it says, after battles, remove non-unholy monsters from the monster deck. This persists between dungeons until the necromancer is defeated. I've gone ahead and removed all the human keyword and beast keyword monsters from the monster deck. As you can see, they're all lined up here. They'll be taken out of the monster deck. The only thing remaining inside that deck is going to be anything with the keyword unholy. Now, there are a couple things about exploring the dungeon that I want to touch on before we end this video off, and then we're going to be moving into the next video, which is going to talk specifically about the Hamlet phase. I'll show you how XP works, I'll show you how gold is spent, and all the other things that happen in town. But in terms of the movement throughout this, you'll see so far we're doing pretty good. I mean, we did lose 1 character, and we still could easily progress. We have no damage on any of our characters right now. For the purposes of this video, I'm not going to be exploring any further into this dungeon. I'll be doing a lot of that off camera, but what I'm going to show you is how you can move into that Hamlet phase. So basically, as of right now, if your whole party was in dire straits, you maybe got the XP like we did, and you're sitting there going, you know what, I think at this point I just want to get out of the dungeon. At any point in time, you can choose to leave. You don't have to backtrack your way through the rooms and to the main entrance, losing stress as you go all the way to leave. However, if you're planning on backtracking in general inside the dungeon, for instance, I'd have to do that if I wanted to get to one of these areas I haven't been to, you're going to be taking stress every single time you backtrack through the dungeon or through corridors. And of course, you can still rest if a room is cleared, like we're on one right now, which could help us use some campfire in order to essentially heal up. So for the purposes of this video and moving to the Hamlet phase, this is something I would not be doing if I was actually playing this all the way through, but I'm going to have the party leave at this point. We're going to take the 1 XP and the 20 gold we got, and we're going to get out of here. Again, I highly recommend that you explore and get as much as you can out of each dungeon to help you prepare for the tougher things to come as you progress through the campaign. But we're going to go ahead and ditch right now and head to town and see how the town phase works. And that's going to wrap up this part 2 video focused specifically on battles in Darkest Dungeon. In the next video, it's all about the Hamlet phase. Thanks again for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.